Hello, and thank you for joining us again on another calibration marketing webinar. Today, I have another former colleague, Kim DeRoy, who is now with Elevate Movement. He'll be joining me to share a little bit more about Elevate Movement, their products and solutions. We'll talk a lot about Dropfoot and how to approach it a little differently, and some of the things that they have happening behind the scenes, looking ahead to AOPA. But before we really jump into things, for those that don't know about calibration marketing, I started it earlier this year, 2024, and it's really another solution, another avenue for those in the O&P industry primarily that need marketing support or product support that don't have the bandwidth or ability to really bring on somebody full time or need somebody to step in for a short contract period. I'm here to solve that need, whether it be content creation or managing an entire marketing strategy, whatever the need really is. I wanted to have that be an option for those that need it and simply know that they have this gaping hole in their offering, but they're not able to really fulfill it. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go to calibration.marketing. That's the website. And so without further ado, I will welcome Kim to the floor. Share a little bit about yourself, Kim, about Elevate Movement before we really jump into things here. But I'm glad you were able to carve out some time while you're traveling the world.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you for having me, and welcome to everyone. So my name is Kim DeRoy. I am from Belgium originally, and my background is actually in physical therapy, and I'm an orthotist prosthetist as well. So how did I get into the O&P industry? It's all because I became an amputee myself below the knee back in 1996, so 28 years already. And that was obviously my first confrontation with what at that time prosthetics has to offer, and at the same time what limitations there were in the 90s. And then obviously having worked for Oser for 18 years, having worked in pretty much all the different countries in the world, seen all the advancements, seen all the exciting things that are happening on the prosthetic side. And that has led me now to where I'm at with Elevate Movement, that I feel that, hey, there might be an opportunity here to bring some of that advancement into the O side of O&P and offer some solutions to people that need it just as much, but are not necessarily having access to it, and bridging that gap, and in this case, particularly to Dropfoot solutions and those that are challenged with Dropfoot.
Yeah, and so I guess, we always talk about the fact that there is a high likelihood of somebody finding themselves in the position of facing disability or, something like that. So time certainly flies. And before we kind of get into everything, is there anything, I'm sure there are lots of things that you have learned, and some of the things that I shared in that initial slide was just talking a little bit about all the accomplishments that you've had thus far. Is there anything that you would want to share just from your perspective with anybody that may be listening that is a user currently or going through initial trauma or anything like that, you now retrospectively recognize as maybe something that you didn't know initially?
Well, what you don't know up front is obviously, how is this going to change my life? How is this going to change the way I do things on a day-to-day basis, things that we just take for granted, things that we don't even think about. And I think over the years, I mean, obviously you start out, I got a Satch foot and I got my first liner, and it was actually not a liner. It was a TPE and a soft material foam and all that. And that was my first prosthesis. And I was super happy because I could walk again.
Sure.
And I went as far as to actually play basketball in it, with all the consequences of skin issues and all that too. But what you take for granted is that in many cases, a replacement in terms of a prosthesis or a supportive device like an orthotic doesn't necessarily bridge the gap in all and every single event. And when I started really getting more active again, well, if I could choose, I would want a swimming leg, I would want a bike leg, I would want a running leg, I would want a leg that is standing next to my bed at night that I can just, put on like a pair of slippers and and go to the bathroom if I have to, or
Hmm.
I'm on the beach. Yeah, that's going to get dirty. Is that my swimming leg, or do I want another one? You want the variety of solutions.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, to a large extent, the reimbursement systems around the world, they don't
Right.
support that, and it's improved dramatically since I became an amputee. But still, when I then look at the O side of the business, I think the founder of Elevate, Arnie, a good friend of
Mm.
mine, an
Yeah.
engineer, he said it best. He's like, you know what, Kim? In my mind, people with disabilities are being screwed over.
Yeah.
And he made one slide, which I cannot, I'll do it justice, hopefully, by explaining what was on it. But on it, there was a pair of underwear and a pair of rugged boots. And he
Yeah.
said, look, the orthosis needs to fit as comfortably as a pair of underwear,
Mm.
but it needs to last for so long that it actually has to be as strong as a pair of rugged boots.
Mm. That is, and yeah.
And then the next picture that he shows is the strongest man in Iceland, and then just a little old tiny lady sitting in her chair. Oh, and by the way, that underwear and the rugged boots needs to fit the strongest man in Iceland just as much as it would fit the old lady.
Right.
And then there's language in the coding that defines exactly what it needs to do and look like. That was written sometime 40 years ago and might not even be relevant anymore. So that is, in a way, the mindset of Elevate, not in the least led by its founder, is
Hmm.
that we're going to figure out ways to bridge the gap when people are not able to use the device that is described in an L code and that has a certain function, and of which, oh, by the way, you get one every
Yeah.
5 years. Let's
Right.
figure out a way to not have people feel disabled in those many situations where that device is not usable.
Right, right. Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. Those descriptions gave me goosebumps, certainly, because it's true, and it's true for both the O and P side. It sounds like, and I know there's a lot of movement on the prosthetics end of things, of that through the So Everybody Can Move movement, and it continues to speak to whether it be misunderstanding or lack of caring or all of the above, of just, well, I'm not in those shoes, so that person will be fine. They'll figure out a way
Yeah.
until
And I'll
until
take
you
that as
are.
a segue. I'll take that as a segue, Linda,
Yes.
because when you suffer, in this case, the focus indication of Elevate movement is drop foot,
Yeah.
the issue of drop foot. And you say, I'm not in those shoes. Well, when they're not in their shoes, the solutions of today, they're not functioning because an AFO needs a shoe to really function.
Right.
Now I know that there's a lot of solutions out there that are claiming to lift the foot when you're not wearing shoes and all that, but most of them don't offer the stability the patient needs. Most of them are
Mhm.
not easy enough to use to allow you to really say, look, I come home, I take my shoes off, and I can walk around my house with the same level of stability, security, and confidence that
Yeah.
I would when I'm wearing my AFO and my shoes. And that's a huge challenge, a huge task. Or I'm going to go to the beach and I'm actually going to take off my shoes like everybody else does, and I'm going to go into the ocean, and I'm not going to be the disabled person with
Yeah.
a drop foot, but I'm actually going to walk around like everyone else. Those are the types of questions that the founder developer of the company is really asking themselves, and those are the types of questions that we're putting into our product portfolio thinking as to how are we going to solve those, you know taken for granted functionalities by those that are not suffering the problem, and how are we going to make that available in a way that is not, hey, now you get one pair of underwear
Yeah.
for the rest of the next 5 years.
Right.
Actually, you're going to buy as many as you want and switch them as many as you want and use one for this activity and one for the other activity, and oh, it's going to be affordable, and you're not going to be dependent on a national healthcare system that will or will not allow you to get access to it.
So
That
how does
means
that? No, keep going.
that means challenging the envelope, not accepting the status
Yeah.
quo, right?
I guess because I'm not as familiar with this, and some folks that are listening in are obviously learning more about Elevate as a whole. They may understand the issues that are associated with drop foot, some of the solutions that are out there. But if you can break it down for me, for those that maybe don't know anything about it, what I guess how does Elevate allow for those kind of for those freedoms to be able to give users the needed access to the right products throughout the 5-year time
Right.
and beyond, obviously.
Yeah.
How are you doing things differently?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think I could talk hours on that, but we have
Sure.
limited time. But I'm definitely I'm going to start by saying, look, the first step for Elevate was to bring products to market like the Glide and the Free Flow, which are AFOs that would typically come in multiple different sizes,
Yeah.
and then obviously in an anterior design and a posterior design. But once you put one of those sizes on the patient,
Yeah.
you're fixed. There's no changing the dimensions, right? So you might, as a stroke patient, you might go through a process of recovery. As
Sure.
you get better over time, you would maybe want initially, when you're less strong in the knee, quadriceps instability, you would need an anterior device that is positioned slightly higher, more ground reaction forces, more support, more safety and stability.
Hmm.
As you get better, 6 months down the line or 9 months down the line, moving that calf cuff slightly down means less ground reaction forces, means easier rollover, means more dynamics. So that's a very
Gotcha.
simple example of the adjustability of a device that now accommodates that user from early through the different progresses in their rehab to later stages as well.
Mm.
So that's one aspect of it.
Yeah.
Some of these patients, they might actually be very unstable to begin with. So that means they're not going to get by with a custom fit or an off the shelf type device.
Yeah.
They're going to need more stability to start with. So one of the things that Elevate has done with the Swift is basically develop a custom carbon fiber AFO. And actually, I have one right here next to me,
Oh, okay.
which,
Yeah.
where we're actually integrating what ONP has been using for years. We're integrating inner boots that are flexible in nature, that are thermoformable. We're
Hmm.
integrating parts that are thermoformable, that have a little bit more rigidity to it, to allow the patient to get the maximum stability. And we're combining that with the proprietary Helix Band, which is a mechanism that allows you to correct for pronation or supination. All of
Mm.
that in a system that is basically very modular. So now think ahead. This is what the patient needs day one.
Yeah.
Very unstable, a lot of knee instability, a lot of triplanar instability around the foot and ankle. Now the patient gets better. If we provide that patient with a thermoplastic custom AFO,
Hmm.
well, that's what it's going to be. We might be able to put some joints in it, but it's going to be a thermoplastic AFO. It's never
Yeah.
going to be a dynamic, lightweight carbon fiber device that allows them to walk longer with less effort, that
Right.
allows them to
Right.
gain these gait efficiencies. So what we do with this one is patient gets better. We lower trim lines or we take parts away. We can remove this
Mm.
thermoplastic immediately when needed. We can
Yeah.
remove the boot altogether. And what you have left then is what is known as your typical custom fit AFO with maximum dynamics, with maximum flexibility, and also energy storing and energy return capability. So now we're bridging that gap from what is maybe good for 6 months. Now we're making it adaptable so that it can last the 3 to 5 years that it needs to last for the
Mm.
patient, because that's what the payer is willing to pay for it for.
Yeah.
So just one of the examples that obviously, we work now with some of the world-renowned even rehab centers that are integrating this to say, well, this allows us to start earlier, which is good because those
Yeah.
patients have 3 to 6 months post-stroke, three to
Yeah.
six months, and in those 3 to 6 months there will be auto regeneration. The brain, the nerves,
Yeah.
the muscles, the plasticity of all those structures allow for auto recovery. That's great. But if that auto recovery is done with a device that is kind of prohibiting a
Hmm.
normalcy, normal gait, normal
Yeah.
kinematics, well, then you're only going to get as much. So if you can do that with a device that better supports that, like the Swift,
Yeah.
you can start off with that device earlier because you can fit it basically within the day that the patient is eligible.
Hmm.
That could be as soon as maybe a week, 2 weeks after the stroke happens. And it's viable throughout the whole progress in rehabilitation because of the adjustability. So we're
Gotcha.
covering all of a sudden, we're coming in way sooner and we're
Right.
supporting the rehab because it's much easier as a physical therapist for me to train somebody, to teach somebody, hey, you got to roll over the foot, you got to push off the toe, you got to create energy to get energy, you got to put a
Hmm.
larger step on the contralateral side. You can do that when you have a dynamic, flexible device that
Yeah.
supports. You cannot do that when that device is fairly rigid in nature, thermoplastics typically are, and when it's unstable because of maybe it's a joint that just jiggles back and forth, balancing on a knife's edge. not
Hmm.
exactly what you need to get confidence as an early on user. So it's these types of things that we feel bring an opportunity to get patients fit sooner and have a device that supports those very critical 3 to 6 months of auto
Hmm.
recovery and teach them the right things first. And in orthotics, I feel people might not have experienced it as much. But when I think about prosthetics, when I think about
Hmm.
my first prosthesis, and I think about the satch foot that was underneath there,
Yeah.
I was a young guy, obviously easy to get used to, a satch foot or whatever they put underneath me. But you're teaching somebody to learn how to walk again, first steps on something that does not support walking at all.
Yeah.
Then months later, even some cases years later, people were upgraded to, at that time, the exclusive flex foot.
Mm.
And now you get flexibility, you get energy return, you get inversion, eversion, movability, and all that. And oh, for me, it was easy. You put that one on, I walk on it. But for older people,
Yeah.
they might have given up on walking because, hey, their first experience with the prosthesis was not great. And then they get or some of them might actually struggle getting used to that new foot, which, yeah, to get the energy, you need to put in the energy as well. So we've made that progress. 25 years ago, such feet were still used all over the place.
Yeah.
Right now, it's all carbon fiber, it's all glass fiber, it's all more advanced technology. And
Hmm.
that's what we hope we can get more into the minds of the O side of OMP, is that if we look at custom carbon fiber AFOs, they're difficult to make, they're tough to fabricate in-house, many of them are outsourced. Well, now with Swift you can do that,
Mm.
and you can do it as easily as you make a thermoplastic AFO. So let's change the dynamics.
Yeah.
Let's change and fight the status quo, because we are now able to deliver a flex foot AFO instead of a satch foot plastic thermoplastic
Right.
AFO from the get-go.
Which is crazy that it, everything takes time, right? But the fact that this is not, or at least, in my world or what I try to keep on top of, I don't see that in conversations a lot. And that's part of why I wanted us to have this conversation, because I feel like it's important for more people to know that there are these solutions. And I think you and I spoke at NAOPA maybe a year or 2 years ago about this proactive care, and you spoke to it just a moment ago, of being able to have this solution for somebody that's even in hospital and has just had this happen to them,
Right.
which there really aren't many solutions, if any, other than what you have at Elevate. So it's
So you talk to
definitely.
the nursing staff, for instance, that is taking care of the acute phase, situation with the stroke patient, and they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, well, we have the boots that are supposed to offload. We've got the Prefos, and I mean, those are two very rigid, hard, heavy devices. You can't really walk on them all that well. Their ankles hit together and they're hurting themselves. So we usually, and that's the funny thing, is then they find their own solutions, and we just ace wrap the
Mm.
patient. We ace wrap them when we're transferring them from the bed to the sofa, from the sofa to the bathroom. But then the wrap falls off and the drop foot is
Yeah.
there, and it's not really very helpful. So that's when we get into, the conversation about, when you look at amputees, there's a whole post-operative program. Over the years, over the last 3 decades, I was there when it started and,
Yeah.
and followed it very closely. The introduction of post-op liners, stump shrinkers, the introduction of stump protectors
Hmm.
has been tremendously important for the preparation of the patient to prosthetic care, getting them there faster, get rid of the edema postoperatively to make sure that they can wear a prosthesis faster, that
Sure.
the stitches can be removed, that process is accelerated. Now, when
Right.
you're a stroke patient, you end up in an ICU, and you're typically going to be lying down on your back for 23 out of 24 hours. If you're lucky, the physical therapist is going to come in and is going
Hmm.
to do some mobilizations. And if you're in very severe condition, it might take weeks before you actually are up on your feet again. But that's
Right.
the period of time where the feet are lying down. You're starting to get the contractures in the muscles, and that's when early plantar flexion contractures set in. And I
Mm.
know I can speak for all orthotists. They
Yeah.
prefer a patient to walk in that can achieve a 90-degree angle versus one that is stuck in maybe 120 or whatever, because
Right.
that's
Right.
just a tougher case to be able to put an AFO on, and it's going to take forever to get them to that normalized position. So
Yeah.
it's with that in mind that the sock, the S step,
That
was
was going to be
developed.
my next point, that I've
Right.
seen a lot of great things about the S step. So I don't know if you want to talk to it, or if you want me to throw up some of the slides that you had created. We can start however.
I think the
But I
one
certainly
slide
want
you
to hear
could
more
bring,
about it.
and you could maybe just populate it so that it's there, is the
Yeah.
overview of acute phase to the long life as a stroke patient.
Here,
Um,
let's do that. And you let me know when you can see it.
I can see it.
Okay. Okay.
So
And I
where
might hide us just so it's a little bigger for everybody.
Okay. So where OMP is today is like we're typically getting involved in the patient, in outpatient. And I know I'm speaking very generistically because there are some instances where we get involved earlier, but I think it's more of an exception than a rule that after acute phase, patient leaves with an AFO, right?
Mm,
So that means when we look at the data, a lot of the patients that get a custom fit AFO, they will actually get carbon fiber. Kudos, great. We've made the
okay.
transition from Satch to FlexFoot there as well. So that's really good. But when you look at it in the earlier stages, we feel that there's an opportunity and a need for a more holistic approach that fits from first stage post acute. Like when you put the stump shrinker on the amputee,
Uh-huh.
you should put the sock on the stroke patient to prevent them from falling, because they do get up. They might get up in the middle of the night,
Sure.
and the first thing that hits the floor is their toes, and the rest is the rest of their body. Stand stability is very important in that early phase, either when they're trying to stand themselves, but also when they're assisted in a transfer. When they're going
Hmm.
into physical therapy and all they have is a foot hanging down in a flaccid position, that's obviously not going to encourage the physical therapy to make much progress, to make certain exercises viable. So being able to position the foot in a dorsiflex position in
Hmm.
that particular phase of time with a system that is fully textile based, that does not hurt, that is very comfortable, and you can actually wear in bed, is a great addition to what is completely lacking today in that acute phase care. Then the
Gotcha.
next step for us is inpatients now can, with the Swift, the one I showed earlier,
Yeah.
they can actually get a solution that can be made right there on the spot in the same day or next day delivery,
Mm.
that has all the bells and whistles with regarding stability, but at the same time is modular so that it can be downgraded, bad word, more like toned down to get
Hmm.
to a more dynamic type of functionality and almost match the function of your typical custom fit off the shelf carbon fiber type AFO. To
Gotcha.
then think again longer term, the lifetime value is that patient that wants to go to the beach, that wants to be in the in the swimming pool, that wants to be more comfortable when walking around the house without their AFO and the shoes on, that wants to be able to go and be more self dependent with in the bathroom, standing in the shower on slippery surface and have the foot in the right position. All these things and probably more. People that want to switch
Right.
shoes because it's a privilege to wear a nice pair of shoes that is narrow, that fits your foot well, or for ladies to wear a little bit of a higher heel. It's a privilege. You can't do that when you have an AFO or you have a drop foot.
All
But with
right.
a sock, all of that opens up because it fits every shoe. And that those
That's
are all the
huge.
components that I consider to be massive gaps in the current day offering that we feel we can fill with the sock. And the
Hmm.
same thing, we can probably improve the rehabilitation, the progress support that much better with a device like the Swift. So if
And
you
for
go to
those wondering, you are fitting these devices by professional clinicians in the US, Canada, and Australia still currently, correct?
well, actually Germany as well. So we're
Okay.
we're expanding, and we have made our entry into Germany. We are MDR compliant now, which is not a minor feat either. We're very
Yeah.
proud of that. And it opens up opportunities for countries we're currently working on. Is I'm in Sweden today, so that tells you Nordic is on our radar.
Hmm.
But the same goes for countries like the Benelux. I'm from Belgium. Obviously, I need to put some time and effort into
Mm.
that as well. But UK is on our radar. France is on our radar. We've got a lot of requests to come and
Sure.
educate about the solutions and see how we can enter the market there.
Which is great. And I've seen some really great videos about uh, the drop foot sock.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
don't, is
that's right.
this,
You
should
can play
we,
this one. I think this
okay,
one kind of sums up what I'm trying to verbalize here, but it's
here,
just
I'll
yeah.
put that.
This was basically the comment that I got from the 36-year-old Christian who is a stroke patient. He says, "Well, my shoes come off, and I mean, obviously, I mean that's when life gets more difficult." So,
Hmm.
the sock, as you can see here, it's a fully textile-based solution. It has a BOA dial, which when you crank it, the foot lifts through a cord mechanism that is integrated into the sock between two layers, and it puts the foot into any dorsiflexed position you would like. So
Hmm.
when you look at him walking, this
Yeah.
is him without the sock, even though he's wearing one on the right side. This is him with the sock. And
Yeah.
the difference, and I'll show you in more detail on the next slide, but the difference in posture, even the difference in the way the hand is spastic, the overall body composure, massive difference. Him on the beach, just
Yeah.
walking with even more ease, less spasticity, just a lot more comfortable doing these types of activities and just taking it beyond as well. When he was a trial patient of mine, I gave him an extra sock and I said, "Go nuts, take it to the
Yeah.
pool, go into the ocean. It's machine washable anyway, so you don't have to worry about it getting
Okay.
dirty." And he did exactly that. And he shared me this footage, which I'm very grateful for because
Mm.
this is what those people struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like on the prosthetics end of things, having those activity specific devices, right? And having
Right,
access to them.
right. And this is one
It's,
sock that we have today, right? This is the one design that we start with. But obviously people are going to want colors. Great, we can do that. But they're
yeah,
also going to want it for different activities.
sure.
So when we look at
Yeah.
Christian here, so he's used to walking with a crutch, which means he's not only impaired on the one hand, the other hand is not there either when he's walking with a
Yeah.
crutch. So when you look at the second video, this is in his 2-minute walking test where
Yeah.
he gets rid of the crutch and everything gets worse. His
Yeah.
right foot that is not even impaired starts to turn in more and there's more effort coming out of that. So no wonder
To
ankle
balance and
hurts,
all that.
knee hurts, low back hurts, and the
Yeah.
spasticity increases on the upper level, on the upper body as well. So when you then see him walk with the sock,
Yeah.
it's just night and day. And his comments are, well, my back and my knee and my hip don't hurt, but more importantly, I can actually keep up with people. They don't have to
Hmm.
wait for me all the time. And I still have some energy left at the end of the day as well. So just his words when he came back from Spain was, my quality of life has just dramatically improved in a way that I never saw possible.
Which
And
is huge. Yeah.
we don't want people to say, look, okay, well, maybe Medicare is going to pay me one sock and then that's going to have to do. It's like, no, let's not even count on that. We'll make
Hmm.
it available at a retail price of $199, which I think is with the intent of making sure people can actually afford not one, not two, but five of these
Right.
and just intermittently use them and use one when they're going into activities that are maybe getting it dirty and sweaty, and then one is
Hmm.
just for in the house use, and over time they will collect their different types of socks.
Yeah.
And that's what we want people to be able to do, not to
And
be
you,
dependent on a payer. And that means
right.
mindset change there as well, because people want things to be paid for by,
Yeah.
but they need to value the quality of life that some solutions can bring them. And I think this is one of those examples.
Yeah. No, it certainly, I think, as we said earlier, just allows for that freedom and just going about your everyday life of what it used to be before this type of trauma takes place. Did you want me to play this video as well on the
This one
on
is
the?
more of an explanation about how we're used to do stuff with, if we're looking for stability, right? You have a patient that has triplanar instability or a level of instability, supination, pronation. Very quickly we're thinking custom, and when we're thinking custom, we're thinking thermoplastics.
Mm,
And when I think thermoplastics, I'm like, great, good solution. It supports the medial arch of the foot very well. We're getting potentially pronating feet. We're lifting them up and stabilizing them, because a drop foot never is an isolated sagittal plane issue. There will always be the lack of eccentric function where the foot drops internally or externally. So
hmm.
that means more strain on the ligaments, means more strain on the articulations, and could over time cause increased instability or even arthrosis, which is obviously the worst case scenario. So if we put that all and we encapsulate that in a rather hard plastic cup, we can avoid all this from happening. But that reminds me of walking on my Satch foot. because the foot doesn't have the flexibility post mid stance to allow for pronation and to allow for a good stride on the other side, which is important to protect that other side.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about all of that, this is where again Arnie, the inventor of the systems, came up with the Helix Band. And he says, we need a dynamic solution for the dynamic problem of supination or pronation. And in this case, when you look at it, so if you can pause here, just real quick, you see that the strap is actually made up of
Get rid of that.
thank you. It's got different types of bands there. The part that is closest to the foot is actually elastic. So
Okay.
means that there's a little bit of elasticity in there. But there's one underneath the midfoot, and then there's an optional one that you can put underneath the calcaneus.
Yeah.
But together, they will provide full hind and midfoot stability. And you can just play now,
Okay.
which basically lifts the medial arch to where it needs to be, but not in a
Mm.
rigid manner, not with a hard plastic that is pushing the foot into that position every step of the way. What we're getting is actually something that is dynamic, where when the heel strikes and your shape of your spring opens up here
Yeah.
and here, the band tightens. So we get more support, more stability when the ground reaction forces are the highest. That means well, I'm getting fireworks and everything. So when we do that, you're actually getting stability when you need it, but the band relaxes past mid.
Mm.
So that means past mid stance, where the plastic is pushing your foot the opposite direction, and you need to put the other foot down because you can't pronate.
Yeah.
Here, we're allowing for that movement. So it's all about having the support and the stability when you need it, but allowing for dynamics and flexibility as needed as well.
Right.
And what
Right.
we see on every single patient that uses this, and the same goes for Swift, where we see a combination of rather flexible materials, the first steps they take larger strides than they would if they're walking on their
Mm.
plastic AFO. The
Mm.
second thing, and that's their subjective feeling, they feel that this device is not causing pressure points because
Mm.
it only activates when they need it and it kind of relaxes when they don't need it anymore. So these are kind of just the examples that really play into it. And
Yeah. I see.
this is an example of a patient on two traditional carbon fiber laminated propulsive AFOs. And then the other one is one where we actually provided him with the Swift custom AFO. And if we have the time, we can play them, because
Yeah.
this on the left, you will see that right leg is unsupported. He's still hitting the
Mhm.
ground on the lateral side of the foot.
Yeah.
His stride length is limited, a little longer on one foot, but less on the other foot. And if
Right.
you look at the right knee, if he walks back and forth again, oh no, sorry, the
The same
same
one.
video,
Yeah. Yeah.
right knee is pushed into varus every single step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So he's creating step by step potentially arthrosis of the knee on the medial
Mm.
compartment. Now, many of the people that look at this video say, "Yeah, but why don't you just wedge it on the lateral side? Tilt it so that it straightens out." I was like, "Great, but that's a
Mm.
static solution for a dynamic problem."
And
So
how does it
instead
feel
of
from a
that,
comfort level?
no, he says, "I got enough pressure points already. Put an
Yeah.
extra wedge underneath there. Now the brace is going to push at the knee level, so that's more discomfort." So he said,
Right.
I don't want that." So when you now play the video on the right,
Yeah.
there you'll see that we're actually actively correcting that motion with the Helix Band. We're lifting with the Helix back under the lateral side, and we're correcting it. So first steps on this device, it's more flexible than the other one, which means he's getting automatically the ability to take larger strides, but also look at the positioning of his feet. They're
Right.
externally rotated. He's no longer landing on the lateral side of the foot. And the knee on the right hand side, you see that thrust into varus is almost gone.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
subjectively, he says, well, these don't cause me as much discomfort. Objectively, and if you go to the next slide, you see it in still, you see that we're changing from the ankle all the way up to the hip. We're changing the entire alignment of the leg. Correcting
Right.
ankle, knee angle, the way the foot is in swing, the way the foot hits the ground. And then in the video, we saw how the stride length is normalized as well. So that is what Swift is all about. This is what you want to teach your patients
Right.
10 days, 12 days post-stroke. And I know it's going to start with small steps and shuffling, but you want to teach them how it feels to roll over a device, to get the energy return, to accommodate them with what the dynamic device is about, also
Mm-hmm.
when it needs to be custom.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, this is seeing things live, right? Certainly brings them to life and makes it clear to see the differentiator and what the user themselves feels that they benefit from. And a lot of the time, that's even if it is subjective, if that person feels like they don't have as many pressure points, they can easily, take their shoes on and off or be able to get up off the bed. That's a huge part of the battle to
Yep.
get them mobile and just back to their everyday activities,
Yep. What
which
was
is
interesting, and this relates back to the sock. So in our clinical trial, we actually measured 2-minute walking test, time up and
mm,
go. And those are, I mean, 2 minutes is short, right? Even though 2 minutes at once for some of these patients is a long
sure.
time to walk, but it's more related to shorter displacements. They improve their walking distance not only when they're not wearing a device, they're improving it by 10% against wearing their AFO, which
Mm,
we weren't expecting. And by no means are we saying, hey, this can replace an AFO. We don't want it to be like that, because we do know that when you walk longer distances, the energy restoring capacity of an AFO is going to be important for them.
yeah.
But the time up and go on the 18 patients we had in our trial had a statistically significant improvement. That's the
Well,
type of stuff that shows you that when you're walking around your house, which is all about getting up, taking a few steps,
yeah.
taking a turn, coming back, like the time up and go test, it's statistically significant on our 18 patients. That is of value. That's of
Oh, yeah.
tremendous value, that shows that these patients are more efficiently moving around in those confined spaces. Their agility and balance is better when they're wearing the sock.
Right.
That's what we're looking for. And I think we'll now see and find out, is this the case for 60% of those wearing AFOs, or
Hmm.
60% of the drop foot population, or is it for 90, or is it for 20? That we will gradually explore. But we know that in our trial, about 70% of those that took part
Yeah.
ended up using the sock continuously onwards. And the ones that weren't able to, that was more a morphology issue where the atrophy of the calf was too much for the sock
Mm,
to hold up. We've
yeah.
made some design changes. We think we can probably add 10 to 15%, but that we do need. We need a good
Sure.
connection to the lower limb proximally to be able to lift that foot, because there's some forces involved there.
Yeah.
But we're super excited about both, being able to give people a solution that from day one feels them, makes them more stable, takes a little bit of the effort out of the day to day,
Yeah.
and all the way through the end is just lifestyle, just having people, giving people the ability to enjoy a lifestyle like you and I, and not
Right.
have to worry about, oh, I'm going there, I want to wear my fancier shoes or my nicer pants or my dress or whatever. It just put on the sock of your choice of that day and let's go.
Hmm. Right. And so is the sock commercially available now? I know you said that it's going through some trials and you're trying to gather more information. Um, can people sign up on elevatemovement.com to get more information about it? Or, what are some of the next steps that somebody could take if they are truly interested and need something like this?
Yeah. So for the professionals amongst us, the
Yeah.
the OMP professionals, they can reach out to us.
Yeah.
They can reach out to actually customer service, or directly to Jeanette at elevatemovement.com.
Yeah.
We are actually in the process now of taking pre-orders,
Oh,
because we
great.
want to know how many we actually have to start producing in bulk. And we actually have already received the first pre-orders as well.
Oh,
So that's
great.
super exciting. So there, by all means, reach out through that email, or call us direct on the number you'll find on our website as well.
Yeah.
So that's one option. We will launch and make commercially available the product at the OPA, with
Okay.
first deliveries expected in October.
Okay. Yeah. So for those that are attending AOPA, which is in a couple of weeks now, is that going to be the big thing that you present and do at workshops and things like that? Is that what they should expect to learn more about during those few days while we're all together in Charlotte?
Absolutely, and we're hosting an event where we're inviting anyone and everyone that
Okay.
is interested in coming. That will be between 3 and 4 at the on the Thursday,
Okay.
and by all means, we can provide you with more information there too. You can also reach out to me, Kim at elevatemovement.com, and
Okay.
we will get you that information. It's actually in the hotel that is right next door,
Oh, okay.
where we have
Well,
the
you may
room.
see me there.
Very good, very good. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us,
No,
it's a big opportunity. Again, every time we get the larger groups of people together, to
for sure.
nothing happens overnight. When I started at Oster back in the day, and we had the post-op program initiated, it was an uphill battle, and we had to not only accommodate or get the awareness and the interest of the O&P industry, we had to get it from the nursing staff, the willingness to change behavior,
Sure.
change management, and all that. I think the SOC is going to be a little bit more, the S step is going to be a little bit more straightforward, because
Mhm.
it is so straightforward in its function. It's easy to
Right.
understand, and it's very obvious how it supports and helps.
Yeah.
But still, we're counting on you, on those professionals around us, to spread that awareness, to make sure that people are aware of the solutions that are out there, that are, I believe, are going to be life changing in
Mhm.
both the early phase. When you're a stroke patient and this happens to you, preferably be confronted with the solutions for you right away, than to have
Right.
to find out maybe later on. And then lifestyle wise, for those that have dealt with those gaps in the care, to find out what is available today is going to be huge as well.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm certain that there will be a lot of continue to be a lot of interest, and hopefully you'll get more early adopters signed up after this and after AOPEN, as you kind of really continue to share these stories online, because it definitely it grabbed my attention.
Okay.
So I'm glad
Well,
that
for the users out there, I mean, they're going to want information as well. So we're going to
right.
be launching a website, and it's called dropfoot.com.
That's
And that's where they
fantastic
will
from a
find
marketing
specific
perspective. I love
information.
that.
Right, right. So this is what you're dealing with. This is where you find the answers. It's not up yet, but it will be in the next few weeks. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to find out there, what the sock is a little bit more in detail, on what it looks like, how it functions, and all that, and then how you can get your hands on it as well.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no. You just with that URL alone, that I think that's what's missing in this industry in general, is that for a while there was that one website that Wayne Williams put up about, I think it was bionics for everyone. And it started to become a little bit easier for people to understand the options, because for those that are not in this field and see this every day, and I've talked about this recently a number of times, but like for my neighbors across the street with the daughter who now needs prosthetics, out of the blue, they don't know what the first step is. They don't know what products are out there. They don't know how to find a clinician. They don't know what questions to ask. And so just making it that simple, that if somebody just Googles drop foot, and over time that page and that website will just come up naturally and organically, that simplifies things so much, and it will guide those individuals to the right places to seek the solutions that they need. So I think you're spot on in my eyes. So
Thank you. Thank you. So we envision a future where you have a stroke. Unfortunately, that's the
yeah.
reality of it. At least you're going to get a sock on your foot right away, so that
Hmm.
when you're ready to start walking again, standing again, and all that, at least we made sure that your ankle's still in the right position, and that
Right.
you're not falling because you have to get up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom. No, the sock you go to bed with, you crank it up, and you go to the bathroom in a more safe environment. And
Yeah.
that people are making quicker progress because they get access to a custom carbon fiber AFO that has everything they need in stability, and will support them throughout their progress in rehabilitation as well.
Hmm.
And then years down the line, hopefully they don't need anything anymore, but at least they can still use the sock as they need to, or progress into one of the more lighter weight devices that are the custom fit devices of today.
Right.
And who knows what else is in the pipeline for Elevate in those
Mm.
years. We're excited about them for
Who
sure.
knows? I can't wait to hear more about that as the time goes on. And I thank you for joining me today. And for anybody that was listening in, this will be up on LinkedIn. I will put it up on YouTube so that more people can have access to it. Um, you can learn more about Elevate Movement on elevatemovement.com, as Kim shared. Uh, Send them a note, link in with Kim directly or anybody on his team. I'm sure they're happy to answer any questions. And then our last webinar for the summer webinar series will be in just a short week with Autobach, and we'll be talking about their upper limb solutions. But for today, Kim, thank you for joining me and, allowing me to steal some of your time while you're in Sweden on a sunny day.
My pleasure, Linda. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all the ones that jumped on for listening. And I hope to see you at AOPA if that's where you will drop by on your next stop.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay.